Um, my mom used to tell me a story about when she was growing up. They had a dog, and this dog was a very sweet dog, but it was strange in many ways. For example, it would sit near the fireplace, and then after a little while, it would start whimpering or crying, and they would go over and check the dog, and the dog was almost burning. So they'd move the dog away, and a similar thing would happen. The dog would go outside, and it might get caught in the rain, and would just start crying, but wouldn't move, under the porch where it was dry. And so they took the dog to the vet, and they found out that the dog had some mental challenges and just didn't know how to recognize signals of when it was in discomfort. And so they took care of the dog, and the dog needed a little extra care, and that was fine. I find this to be an interesting story because I think at times we're all a little bit like that dog, in that our body and our non-conscious mind is giving us signals, and we're not always aware of them. We don't always notice them. We don't always pay attention, and also we don't know how to listen and get curious about what they may mean. So over time, I found it very useful to begin a journey of listening to my unconscious mind, listening to my body, listening to any thoughts or things that popped into my head, seemingly randomly. So these are not conscious utterances, so to speak, or sensations. They're things that seemingly arise on their own, but that we can learn to notice and pay attention to. And there's another idea that I find very useful, which is the idea of being congruent, or feeling congruent. And all that means is that you feel perhaps in the flow, you feel that all systems are go. You're in harmony with circumstances and with yourself. Very often, if you're congruent, you'll feel centered. And then on the other side, there are times when we feel incongruent. We feel out of sorts, perhaps. We may feel divided or caught in a dilemma, or upset, or off-center. So one exercise that can be quite useful is to move from one to the other and begin to notice, okay, what are some of the differences that I notice between when I'm feeling very congruent and when I'm feeling incongruent, so I can notice those signals whenever they do come up. So right now, you may have already started to do this, but let's start with times when you feel congruent. And it can just be a pleasant moment, or just a moment where you feel that you feel at one with yourself. And think of one or two or several times and places where you feel congruent, and take one right now and allow yourself to be back there. And notice your posture, notice how you're feeling. Notice if you're picturing anything, if there's any thinking or not. Notice if there is any internal dialogue. And especially notice physical sensations. Notice your breathing. Notice how you breathe when you're feeling congruent. Notice how you're standing or sitting. Notice your posture. You just notice in general how you feel when you're feeling congruent. And you may want to pick another time now and step into that. And it may be a little different from the first, but perhaps notice what's similar. Again, check your thinking. Check if there's anything that you say to yourself. Notice your breathing. Notice physical sensations. Notice your sense of balance. Are you leaning in one direction or not? Okay, so now we'll put that to the side for a second and take a moment and think of a time. It doesn't have to be anything, it doesn't have to be a big deal, but think of a time when you felt incongruent about something. Maybe something didn't feel quite right. Maybe you were torn in a couple different directions. And for now, pick one. And again, notice physical sensations. Notice symmetry. Do you feel the same on the left side and the right side of your body? Very often with incongruent feelings, we may get some asymmetry showing up. Not always, but check for you. Notice any places that you may be holding tension. Are there any parts of your body in particular that signal that maybe something is a little bit off or you're a little bit uncertain? Notice anything that you say to yourself in this type of experience. Notice anything that you picture. And then you can let that one go. And let's pick a second one, a second time where you felt incongruent about something. And step into that. And again, notice physical sensations. What lets you know that something is off? This can be your body's internal way of giving you a signal that something needs attention, perhaps, or something is trying to alert you. Okay, so let's let that go. Now, just for a moment, let's go back to one of the congruent experiences. Again, step into that. And what we're really trying to do here is get familiar with what it feels like. What's the general constellation of how you feel when you're feeling congruent? And then let that go. And pick up one of the ones where you feel incongruent. And again, notice in your body, what is it that lets you know that something is perhaps just a little bit off or a lot off? What's the constellation here? And let that go. And now just shake everything off. And what I would encourage you to do or explore is just over the next couple days or weeks, as you're going through your day, begin to check in every now and then and say, oh, is this an experience where I feel really congruent? Or is this a place where I feel just, ooh, a little more attention is required here? And this may be in relation to a decision. Maybe you're taking a decision, and with one decision you feel like, yep, everything is giving me a sort of an internal yes. And then with another decision, maybe it's like, I'm not quite sure here. And this is our unconscious mind's way of alerting us. And it's interesting because we're used to, many people, myself certainly, I'm used to reasoning or thinking through experience. And this is a way of paying attention to your non-conscious mind that aggregates much experience, many different types of experience. So it's another thing to check in with when you're, perhaps when you're deciding something, or when you're in a situation and, you know, am I feeling, again, congruent, or am I feeling a little bit incongruent? So that's that. Thanks.